So gender is in the news again. This time it comes in the form of a definitional change. And the folks at Merriam Webster have seems to cave to the cultural pressure and put onto them by the culture and the sexual ideologies being pushed by the LGBTQ plus crowd, mainly the trans crowd, in order to appease this small but very loud group of people. The online dictionary has gone ahead and added a new secondary definition to the word female. I don't know if you guys have seen this in the news recently. Part of that definition is, and I quote, having a gender identity that is the opposite of male. That's the new secondary definition. And at first glance, this might not seem like a big deal, but as we dig into the issue, we see there are significant worldview implications in changing definitions of words like male or female. So today we're gonna briefly take a look at the implications that this might have, and this is to the point. If you're watching, thank you. We tend to, or we try to, to the point, take a look at culturally relevant issues from a distinctly Christian worldview. I'm Jon Noyes, your host with Stand to Reason, and I just want to dive right in. The newly added definition of female, then when we look at it, the key term to focus on is gender identity. By using that term, the definition in the definition, by using that term in the definition, the principles at Merriam-Webster are maintaining the idea that gender isn't directly related to or connected to biological sex in any way. And this isn't the only change, actually. If we dig in, this isn't the only change to the online dictionary definition for female, though. The primary definition of female has also been altered, and it's been altered to read this. And this is, I quote, of relating to or being the sex that typically has the capacity to bear young or produce eggs. So you see, when compared to the print edition that I have on my shelf upstairs in my living room, the print edition of the dictionary defines female as, and I quote, of relating to or being the sex that bears young or produces eggs. You see that the change in the online edition to include the phrase typically has the capacity. They add that to it. And while this phrase, it might refer to, when I first read it, maybe an innocent reading of it might refer to women who can't bear children due to infertility or whatever reason, given their nod to the gender identity phrase in their secondary definition, though. When they define female, it seems to me, at least, it's just another step toward progressivism and another thing that's being kind of thrust upon our worldview, the Christian worldview. Now, I've talked about this issue before in a previous To the Point, where I reviewed Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman? So if you want more on that discussion and on what a woman is and how he did, I would point you there. And if you want more of a discussion on why women aren't men, etc., that kind of stuff, go see that To the Point. It was maybe from, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. For now, though, for our time today, for the next, I've got, gosh, my timer, I don't even see it. I've got maybe 4 minutes gone. So maybe the next 11 minutes or so, I'd like to focus on this topic, maybe in a little bit different of a way, if you don't mind. When we come to the issue of gender and sex, there's a battle being fought, but it might not be where you think it is. You see, this is a battle over ideas, not just issues. And sometimes I feel like we get caught into the issue, but not the ideas. Often when we seek to defend the traditionally held understanding of gender, or definition of female, for example, we hear the objection from people. They say, who cares? It's just language. Language is fluid. Definitions of words, they change all the time. Well, this is true, but that doesn't mean the changes don't matter, and it doesn't mean that definitions of words should necessarily change. So the objection doesn't eliminate the issue. The shifts in language, they're important. when one group of people from an ideological perspective control the language in a culture, they can shift the culture on any of their whims according to those ideologies. So this issue is larger than merely an online dictionary and a definition that a group of people maybe choose to publish on that online dictionary's website. Definitions are important, but behind the definitions are ideas, and ideas have consequences. And I love John Stonestreet. He says that ideas have consequences. Bad ideas have victims. I think this is important because the battle over the gender identity is a battle over ideas. And actually we should take our marching orders, as we do from everything. We should get our marching orders from the scriptures, and when we want to know how to engage people, I think we should get our marching orders specifically from Paul in 2 Corinthians 10. Verses 3-5 say, for though we live in the world, we all probably know this verse, right? So though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. Why? Well, because the weapons that we fight with are not weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretense that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to who? To Christ. These are our marching orders, even in these hard conversations, whether it be a conversation about gender identity, whether it be a conversation about abortion or marriage or any of these other issues. We should get our marching orders from the scriptures. And Paul tells us to take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. But he also makes clear that our battle isn't with a person or a group of people. Our battle is with ideas, ideologies, and it's because people, this is important because people are made in the image of God. Genesis 1:27, it says, and God created, we all know this one too, and God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them. You see, we bear the imprint of God, his image. All human beings, in virtue of being human, bear this image. From the greatest to the least, whether you believe it or not, this is true. And this image is what gives us our transcendent value. It's this image that also requires us to treat all human beings with dignity and worth. You see, and it's because we're made in this image that we know that we don't battle with the person. We don't battle against the people. We battle against the ideas. These are truth encounters, not power encounters. One bad idea that's taken root in our culture, and it seems to be growing exponentially, is that we decide our own gender. You see, it's the idea that gender is merely a social construct, and it's meant to manipulate and meant to be manipulated by people. That definition, you can be whatever you choose in the gender department. But notice, though, God created people in his own image, but he also created people according to a cisgender reality. Male and female, he created them. The biblical account is clear. Male and female gender matters. You see, males are not the same as females. Females often perform, and males do too. We perform different roles in culture and society. And then this isn't a bad thing. And now I want to be clear at something at the onset here that, excuse me, I want to be clear about something. I'm not saying some females might not perform functions typical of males, or that males might not perform some function that are typical of females. There's a spectrum here, and there are some boys who love the color pink and they play with dolls. I'm not arguing against that. There are some girls who would rather play in the mud and in the dirt with trucks and build things than play house. What I'm saying is God designed human beings to be either male or female. That gender assigned to them at birth according to the sex at birth, at conception, really, because it's in our genetics. That sex, that gender assigned to us is a transcendent part of who we are. It's immutable. To violate this is to violate God's design and principle. It's not up to us to pick what gender we are. This is a theological and it's a scientific fact. Men cannot become women, and women cannot become men. Which leads me to my next point, and it's the larger point that I think I've been thinking about since I read about this definition change in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. The confusion of the definition of female and all of these issues that have to do with gender is a symptom of a larger issue. Our culture is thoroughly relativistic. We are a postmodern culture, and we've bought into relativism. The culture today, it confuses moral claims with preference claims. This means many people today mistakenly think of that claims of that are moral in nature, the oughts and the ought nots of society. They think of them in terms of subjectivity, that they're subjective in nature. Remember, I think that most of you guys are familiar with this. Subjective truth claims tell you more about me, the subject, than the object. Oftentimes, this is taught in the form of ice cream versus insulin, right? You can have your favorite flavor of ice cream. Mine is mint chip. Yours might be chocolate or whatever, Neapolitan or whatever. That's a matter of personal preference. It tells you about my favorite flavor of ice cream, whereas insulin tells you about something that treats what? Diabetes. And it's not a matter of personal opinion. It actually treats the disease. You can't treat diabetes with your favorite flavor of ice cream. The truth claims are different, right? On subjective truth claims, they're claims to truth that you create. It deals with personal preference, and in the process. And why this is important is because subjective truth claims can all be equally valid. It makes no sense for you to tell me that I'm wrong when I say mint chip is my favorite flavor of ice cream. Objective truth claims, on the other hand, they tell you about the object, the ice cream, in relation to diabetes, not your personal preference. They exist independently of the subject. And also keep in mind, guys, that we don't create them. And this is where it gets important for our conversation. We don't create objective truth. We discover objective truth. And also keep in mind, it's either true or false. So it opens me up to being wrong in this discussion. But it's more than just a matter of my personal opinion. So when I disagree with Merriam Webster changing the definition of female, I'm not saying I don't like the change. I'm saying that the change points to something that is false objectively. And we live in a culture that's adopted the idea that when we talk about moral things and gender is a moral thing, we're making subjective kinds of claims. In our culture, morality is framed almost entirely now subjectively. You see, in our culture, morality is something you create, which is why when we start talking about moral issues, we hear things like, that's just your truth. You do you, boo, is the saying, right? And it's also why people feel attacked when we address the moral issue. Because in their minds, the claim is subjective. It's about them personally. There's no bifurcation. There's no separation between the claim that the person's making and the person themselves. And then when we take this rationale just a step further, just taking it just one step further, because the culture's lost its understanding of being made in the image of God, which is where we should ground our identity, people ground now their identity elsewhere. Nature abhors a vacuum. There's no such thing as neutral ground here. There's no such thing. And in this case, where people find their identity is in their gender identity. This is who you are, and you can make it up. But when we make moral claims or value claims, and we make these statements about our gender, we're not talking about ourselves. It's not about us or our preferences. The claim's about reality out there, not like in here, how I feel. It either accurately depicts the world as it is and as it really is, reality, or it doesn't. So when we talk about gender issues, we're talking about objective truth claims and issues that aren't subjective truth claims. The moment we realize it's an objective issue, something happens. And I think this is really important. We don't have to be offended when people question it. It frees us up to talk openly and listen to other people. It helps us be humble and nice, because it isn't our idea. It's an objective truth out there, not in here. So when I say a female is a word that describes the sex of an individual, and specifically it describes the sex that can bear offspring or produce eggs, which is the traditionally understood definition of what a female is. It's not a personal statement. It's an objective truth claim. I'm saying this is the way the world really is. This is really what a female is. Now, how do we respond with the last minute or so? As Christians, how do we respond to all of this? You see, we have to remember, guys, that we're ambassadors of Christ. We have to stand firm. God has defined what a female is, not man. And in good conscience, I can't affirm that which I know to be false. You don't lean into falsehoods. You press the truth forward. And all of these issues are just snapshots of where we're going and where we currently are as a culture. The redefining of what a female is by a major publication aids in an increase of soft totalitarianism, and as such, this stuff is forced on the culture, and as it is forced on the culture, the Christian, you and me, we need to maintain truth. Without the objective standard of God and his word, these fads, these things become social contagions. And that's Bill Maher's word. That's not my word for this, by the way. And Bill Maher is no Christian. And as such, these fads, these social contagions, these ideas that we're battle with, not the people, the ideas are destructive. Ideas have consequences. So this is an example of a social contagion, and it's affecting more than just our online dictionaries. People are afraid to speak up under the threat of being canceled or labeled a bigot or a hater or worse. People are at least minimally under threat of losing their jobs or promotions, and because of these things. And again, I point back to Bill Maher on a recent episode. He points out that we're experimenting with these things on our children, which should be concerning. But this is why we as Christians have to become resolute now to stand firm. Enough's enough. If we as Christians don't stand firm now, then the bullying is going to get worse, and the culture is going to continue down the rabbit hole that it's going down. You see, we're charged with bringing light into the darkness, and while sometimes the darkness seems to be increasing and all around us, we aren't always aware of the amazing things that God is doing through you and through me and through other places and organizations like Stand to Reason to push back and dispel the darkness. But just because we're not aware of it doesn't mean we don't continue in the fight. So my advice here on this issue is to understand that issues having to do with gender, they're not subjective. It's not a matter of personal preference and opinion. It's part of a fundamental, objective fixture of reality, the way the world really is. It's not up to us to define what's right and wrong. It's not up to us to define male and female. These things have been defined for us. We discover these truths. We don't invent them. So when we talk about these things, we cannot take them personally because it's not about us. It's about the world and the way that it is. But that means it's important because it's more than just a matter of personal preference and opinion. We're not talking about flavors of ice cream. We're talking about things that matter, and gender matters. So when a major publication like Merriam Webster changes its definition, we should be concerned, but then more than just concerned, more than turning inward or more than turning to our comfortable places, we turn out, and we should be pressing back at these things, shining the light of who we really are according to the true story of reality on top of the darkness that's pressing in on it. And in the end, we know what happens, we win. So we should do it with confidence, with love, being led to the people who need this truth the most. So guys, with that, that's what I got for you today on To the Point. 18 minutes, not terrible. I'm going to try to take some comments here. Wow, there's a bunch. I wasn't looking down as I was speaking. So sorry, I'm going to look down. My screen is down here. Camera's up here. Screen's down here. Another reason to hold to our 1828 Webster's dictionary. There's a number of reasons to hold, I think, print up and support print publications, because it is so easy to revise online sources. I've seen this actually. I was involved in a conversation not too long ago. Well, actually, it was a long time ago now. It's probably, 7 or 8 years ago. It was an online conversation with people about an article. I forget what the subject of the article was in the New York Times. And I was making a point and I quoted the article, and somebody piped up halfway through the conversation, that quote's not in the article. Like, what are you talking about? And then when I went back to the article, the quote that I had copied and pasted from the article had been removed. No retraction, no nothing. And this is just an example of what can happen with online publications. And this is why print is important. Anyways, that's a sub point. Not really what we're talking about today, but yes, we should we should hold print up high because it provides us with an anchor. Hey, John, I appreciate you, man. I love that picture. It's good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. All of you guys, thanks. Levi, thanks, man. It's good to see you. I'm going to try to jump down to What's this is a Jim? I think this is a cutting point, and I think it's taken for granted. When you redefine what a female is using the very definition of male, it's the opposite of male. What are you referring to? You see, and this is a problem that I think that this ideology, the center of this ideology, runs into all the time. Is it's self-refuting ultimately. I mean, what does being transgender mean in the first place? Transgender means transcending from one thing to the next, changing from one thing to another. You're transforming from one thing to another. The very definition of it means that there has to be an anchor. There has to be you're going from male to female. You're going from female to male. It's entailed in the very word. So the ideology is flawed from the very beginning. It's self-refuting, and this point makes that, Jim. Nice work. What's the opposite of male then? I think that's a good question. That's valid. Yeah. It's a simple Hegelian dialectic mixed with a bait and switch. I agree with you guys. If you guys don't know what a Hegelian dialectic is, right? It's when it's from Hegel, secularist, Marxist. Actually, I think Marx probably took his ideas, but it's the idea that what we do is, generally speaking, that there's a problem that we create, the created problem, and then we offer a solution in order to solve it. And then Hegel argues that aids in our evolutionary advancement. But yeah, we create the problem, but there's a bait and switch there too, which we kind of just talked about. Harmony, thanks for putting these links up there. Let's see. Banana Express, man. Hey, John, I'm not sure when there's a time to ask questions, so I'll just put that in the chat. Awesome. Put a question in the chat. I'd love to get to it if I can, as soon as I can. Meaning is prescriptive, not descriptive. That's a great saying, actually. Yes. New Reformation Apologetics. Meaning is prescriptive, not descriptive, meaning it's something that's given to us. It's prescriptive. It's prescribed to us, not descriptive, not merely a description of something that's happened. I think that's a good saying. I appreciate that comment. Let's see here. Here's a question. Justice 399. How do the pro-genders deal with sex and genders in the animal kingdom? Is there still such a thing as a female bear and a male bear? How are we supposed to know? This is a question this is another valid question that you want to pose to somebody in the course of the conversation, remembering that they're made in the image of God. So you don't want to do it in even a sarcastic way, but you want to offer this type of, it's a valid question. It's a valid question. And this idea right here, by the way, is what got Dave Chappelle. And I've talked about Chappelle. That's another to the point that you could tune into. Dave Chappelle, and he got canceled, or they tried to cancel him. And a show literally just got canceled. I forget where it was, but a show of his just got canceled because the trans community is so against him. Where he actually mentioned the thing that he said that caused, well, he said a lot of stuff, but one of the main things that got the trans community on him is the idea that every single human being, and the way that he said it, I can't repeat because he's yeah, he uses language that I don't use, but he basically made that every human being is birthed from a female. Everybody is birthed from a female. And when we start messing with these words and the definitions, what does that do to the culture and the society? We can't change the definition of female, just like when they're trying to change the definition of marriage. Now, I mean, the culture around us would tell us marriage is now something else than it really is. But marriage is an institution that's been defined by God. It's prescriptive, not descriptive, as the commenter made before. So these things, the same thing with male and female. Male and female are something that are given to us. They're defined by God. It's part of who we are. And I mean, this goes into the scientific literature too. I mean, this isn't just solely based on theology, but the science of it. Matt Walsh made the point in his documentary: anybody who dies and is dug up 300 years after their death, the only thing that remains are a bunch of bones. And when we test those bones, their DNA clearly indicates whether they're a male or a female. So this is a scientific fact. It's not things left for us to define. Let's see here. Let's see if I can get some questions. I'm just reading some of these comments here. Mr. Hicks, two genders, simple as that. Just like we can't change our age and actually be the age we try to be. Man, I wish I could change my age right about now. I am tired today. I got to tell you that. A person can't change their gender. It's true. It's a fact. It's an objective part of reality of who we are. It's immutable. It doesn't change over time either. So in that way, it's even more, and maybe not more of a fact of reality, but it doesn't change. Our age, we grow with time. But our gender, it never changes. Even in the infrequent instance of hermaphrodites, the one or the other reproductive organ works and the other does not both. And in the case of hermaphrodites too, guys, by the way, it's just extreme. It's so extremely rare, and exceptions don't make the rules, which is part of Kevin's point here. But great question. I appreciate that. All right, let's see here. Banana Express. I have a question to the transgender topic. It came up after the video of you about transgenderism. I wonder how you deal with one argument, which I know from transgenders. Okay, next comment. We're following along here, Banana Express. Some people say that we live in a sinful world, so that's why we're not perfectly made. What is if our body is broken, like with any other disabled person, but the mind is correct? Yeah, okay. What would be your argument? Okay, so what would it be that if our body is the issue, not if our mind is the issue, but not our body? I would say that our body is testified to multiple sources of. I think people can be confused in their mind about a ton of stuff, but our body is testified to, our biology, our gender is testified to by multiple strains of evidence. And one of those is scientific evidence. Oftentimes as Christians, we kind of run away from the scientific evidence as if it's not spiritual enough or something like this. But this is part of this is part of God's general revelation. It's not salvific in knowledge, but it still lends testimony to who we are and the way the world really is. And part of that is how we're made. We are made, yes, in the image of God, spiritual reality, but we're also made male and female, scientific, physical reality. And we don't change that, and we don't. And my question back to that would be, why is it ever accept? Why are we going through so many lengths to mutilate our bodies and the bodies of our children, but not alter our minds? I mean, now here in California, we have legislation prohibiting the counseling of even unwanted same-sex attractions, for example. In Canada, Bill C3, another thing that I've spoken on. I think I've spoken on it here on To the Point. We have these, or C4 rather, we have these things, these passages and these things of legislation that are now prohibiting the altering of the mind and not the body. Somehow the body is what needs to be changed. And I say it's the opposite, because the body is part of it. It's part of the fundamental reality of who we are. And so we should first try to change the mind. We're also told that through the scriptures, it's the renewing of our minds that we're constantly doing. Like, we're constantly on the transformation through our mind. So I'm trying to think of an example of where altering the body, maybe in a disabled function, but relating the transgender stuff to disabled people. Like, I'm good friends with this guy, Nick Vujicic. He's got no arms and legs, right? That's the way that he was born. It wasn't due to accident or anything like this, but we also know that he is this way. He's disabled. And what does that mean? That means he is born in such a way that he is not able to perform the normal everyday function of people who are normal in that sense, physically normal, at least. So when somebody is disabled, their body is changed in such a way that does not line up with the way it's supposed to be. So, and that's not true of a transgender person. Their body functions perfectly normal according to how they were designed. I hope I'm communicating that appropriately. But relating transgender issue to and getting realignment surgery to a disabled person. Well, I was born in a sinful world. My body is not as it ought to be. But what you're doing in a realignment surgery is you're removing, presumably at least, you're removing part of your anatomy that is functioning according to its telos, its meaning, its purpose, in order to pursue something that's in your mind. And I say that the natural, the way that we should be doing it is the opposite. We should be transforming our minds to point to the greater reality or another reality of our physical nature. I hope that helps, Banana. Let's see here. Okay. I just asked some atheist on Pine Creek yesterday if a man can get pregnant. No answers. I mean, now I feel like people are starting to bite the bullet here. Justice 399. That they'll be like, well, yes. They'll just say yes, and this is the rabbit hole I mentioned. It's the rabbit hole of complete and utter confusion, and this is why it's time for us. We need to stand up and be pressing back, getting out of our comfortable spaces, and actually bringing this back to the culture in the threat of being canceled or whatnot, or labeled, maybe even fired eventually. Losing jobs and positions of stature and influence. But we go forward, and we lean into the culture with the truth of who we really are, according to the true story of reality. Made in the image of God, made as male and female. He made them. That's what the Bible tells us, and that's true of reality. So I'm wondering. Get back to me. I'd love to know what the folks over there at Pine Creek say. The discussion with atheist. Here's continue this conversation with Banana Express. Here on Earth, we don't have perfect bodies. We fell, yeah. We don't have perfect bodies. We have disease, and we seek to overcome those disease. But notice the imperfections are imperfections with our body. We know that they're wrong. There's something that's preventing our body from performing its its purpose, its true purpose. Gender reassignment and trans stuff seeks to do the opposite. We're taking perfectly functioning parts. It's like we wouldn't allow at least we ought not. I would make the argument that we ought not allow, and this is a true thing. I forget the name of it, the technical name of it, but people who want to, they believe in their minds that they should be a person with no limbs, no legs. So they go to the doctor and they say, remove my legs. Should the doctor remove those legs? I think not. I think that the person needs help mentally. They need counseling. They need help out of this because they have perfectly functioning limbs. So, and so to remove those is not right. It ought not be done. It's an objective part of reality. It's an objective claim. I think that it's morally wrong to mutilate your body. So anyways, I hope that helps Banana Express. That's I think a really good question. I think you're bringing up a good point. Let's see here. New Reformation Apologetics. I don't think we can divorce physiological or biological matters from the mental state of a person fully. How else would someone perform something like brain surgery or diet change? Yeah, I think there's certainly I'm not talking about complete separation. I don't think I'm hoping I didn't say that. Your mind obviously interacts with your physical body. I mean, that's clear. The brain damage, for example, is a perfect example of that. How that interaction happens, I'm not necessarily sure. I also don't think scientists know either. I mean, neurologists have been wrestling with this for years. Hopefully, maybe they will come up with some more clear answers. But yeah, there is definitely a relationship between somebody's mind and their body. But what I would argue is that we should first seek to change the mind before we mutilate the body. But that's a good point. New Reformation Apologetics. Nice work. Kenneth, man, you said I'd ask, what's the opposite of male? If a male is kind, is a female unkind? If a male is a black male, is the female white? And would that necessarily be opposite or merely a variant of the same? I'm not quite understanding your point here, Kenneth, but because when you claim like a female and you say what's the opposite of male, the black isn't the opposite of male. It's a category mistake. They're describing two different things, two different features of reality. But certainly being a black male means something. It means necessarily you're not a white male. Same thing with being a man or male necessarily means you're not a female. So yeah, I'm not totally understanding your point, but I think I get what you're saying. Let's make some noise. That's what people used to say to me in high school, man, a long time ago. Oh, I feel old now. Let's see here. Come with your questions. Let's see here. Question right here. Phil, Do you think that a person or a church that buys an LGBTQ plus ideology can still be blessed by God if they still do stuff for his kingdom? I think God uses any means he sees fit to build his kingdom here. And now we see an example of man, where is it? Paul, he addresses, he's asked about these guys preaching the gospel out of false motives or pretenses. I forget where it is. Dang it, I should know this. But anyways, and what's he say to them? Should we stop them? No, let him go, because I mean, grace is going to abound. The grace of God's being present, but we should correct him just like Paul rebuked Peter. So it's not a matter of like live and let live. No, when we see these things, we need to be pressing back into them. And that's what I mean. It's like, we need to become firm on this. We need to become firm. And when we see like there's a church that just recently popped up in my neck of the woods that is completely LGBTQ plus affirming. And if given the opportunity, I should have that conversation with the pastors or the leadership in that church. Because what they're doing isn't right. They're not holding to God's standard here. And that is not pleasing to God. And will God bless that church? I don't know. I doubt it. But then sometimes what we confuse as blessing maybe isn't, right? So oftentimes we say, well, we bless the church. Will they grow in number, and will they grow in finances, and will they have more influence? Maybe that's not necessarily what we see. Maybe God will use that church for a different purpose that we don't know about, right? His ways are higher than our ways. But regardless, we should hold churches accountable to the standard that's found in God's word. That's our objective standard. It's a fixture of reality that does not change or shift or alter, and we need to hold churches to that standard. So I hope that answers your question, Phil. Good question, man. It's a tough one too. I agree, Mr. Noyes. Now they can redact or delete digital copies at the press of a button. So important to keep hard copies of your Bibles and dictionaries. Yes. like Fahrenheit 451, 1984. Yeah, I experienced this. Know what? That conversation, now that I'm thinking about it, that conversation was actually on way back in the day. So it was more than 5 years ago. It must have been 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Because that conversation was actually happening on a Stand to Reason blog post with comments. It was in the comments section. And I remember it now clearly. It was on the old website. Excuse me, with the gray background. Anyways. Good stuff here, guys. I am a woman, Shelley. Yes, you are. Adult female human being. Praise the Lord. There we go. Clarity is good. You've heard arguments that there are some animals who appear homosexual. To be honest with you, these are unmoving to me. One is the ones that I know about are not true when you look into them. Second, there are animals in the animal kingdom that serve both functions, male and female. We're not animals. Like, we're human. I mean, we're animals, but we're not merely animals. We're human beings. We're different. We're set apart. We're made in the image of God. We're made male and female, or female, either one. So anyways, whether other people are, whether other animals experience other things, isn't, I think, relevant. Let's see here. I'm trying to see what any comments, any questions, because my time is running short. I've got about 5 or 10 more minutes. The first thing Merriam Webster did when they bought the rights to the 1928 was remove all the Bible references as examples of definitions. Now they're deleting gender. Where will it end? I think the last question there is the poignant one for us. I don't know anything about the other stuff. I don't know if they were, you're probably right. It sounds like you've looked into this more than I have, but like, where will it end? Where's it going to end if we don't stop? Like, the bullying is already out of control, guys. People like, there's a chance that the powers that be will watch this video and they'll delete not just this video, but all of my videos off of the internet. Every single time any of us at Stand to Reason seek to go live, we seek to do a work, we seek to talk about these controversial issues, we are taking a risk of getting canceled. Now, I don't personally care if I get canceled, right? I mean, I love what Dave Chappelle said it best. He says, I don't care if I get canceled on Twitter. Twitter's not a real place, right? My preferred audience is with you face to face, but this is a great tool for us to get the truth out into the world. But at any moment they can cancel us. But when's that going to stop? When are we going to stand up and hold firm and say absolutely not? And I mean, we can argue boycotting, we can argue all this stuff, and sure, you can try to if you'd like. I think those are perfectly valid means of resistance. But it's also, if it doesn't come, if we don't actually push our ideas, push the truth of who we are out into the culture, then it's really, I don't know what we're doing. We need to be about pursuing the truth and propagating the truth, letting it flow out of us and into the cultures. Let's see here. Justice 399. These discussions give us a big advantage over unbelievers. We can tweak our thinking in these discussions and be better prepared. Yeah, I think that we do need to be better prepared. I think we need to lose. This is a lot of what I talk about in my homosexuality talk, actually. We need to change the way that we talk about things, and oftentimes we lose sight of the fact that we are made in the image of God first, right? We lose sight that we're talking to image bearers. We lose sight of who we're talking to, and sometimes we say things that aren't offensive, that are offensive, and they don't further our cause, our case. They don't further what we believe, and that serves as an obstacle. But we need to become better prepared so we can be better equipped, so we can be better. So we can be better about communicating. Justice, great comment here. Let's see. I'm going to look for question marks here, and then and then yeah. So good. This is great. It seems like. Well, I don't know if you're taking. I'm gonna move over here so I can read it. I think the Bible mentions the changing or renewing of the mind more often than changing our bodies. So I think that's why the physical reality is the Bible. The Bible never, as far as I'm aware, you guys can educate me. It doesn't instruct us on changing a fundamental component of who we are. It doesn't ever mention going from male to female. Our gender, our maleness or femaleness is sacred, just as is our race. And to violate that is to cause great harm. I think it's also, and this is a whole nother talk, and I don't have time to get into it right now, but it's all linked to image of God stuff. And that's ultimately where we ground things. God made us special and unique, yes, in his image, and that's our soul, right? He gives us our soul. It's special. But he also created us, he knit us together in our mother's wombs, and it's part of a fundamental component of who we are, our maleness and females. Yes, there's a spectrum. Not everybody experiences or expresses their maleness the same. I mentioned this, right? Some kids like Tonka trucks and Tostitos. Other kids like dolls and Doritos. That's not what dictates our preferences in that regard. And those things don't dictate our maleness or femaleness, but it's part of our design. It's not up to us ultimately. So great question. Banana Express, man. I'm glad that I was able to pro-gay theology needs to be refuted. Justice, you are 100% right. And that's up to us to become better equipped and understand, not just use clobber passages, right? Not just use the clobber passages, but understand the true and the ethic of Jesus, and be able to explain why the ethic of Jesus is the better way. Refute people like Matthew Vines and the Reformation Project. There's a movie coming out that they're putting out soon. So it'd be good to bone up on this stuff now. Maybe that's what I'll do for one of my to the points. Maybe when the movie comes out, I'll respond to it. Let's see here. Hey, John, is it ever appropriate to shake the dust off of your sandals in the conversations about this with LGBTQ folk that turns negative? Absolutely. Sometimes conversations end, and that's okay. It's okay to stop the conversation. If this is somebody that you're not looking for a sustained relationship with, absolutely. Online conversations come to my mind right away. There's an appropriate way to end conversations too, and it's to be polite, respectful, and cordial, right? Knowledge, wisdom, character, guys. Knowledge, wisdom, character, the 3 pillars of STR. We want to know what we're talking about and why we believe what we believe, but we want to have the character, the wisdom, how to express that, but then the character component's key. And that's oftentimes what I see missing in some of these conversations. This is why Tactics is such a great book and such a great thing to practice too, to learn the tactics of how to control a conversation, not in a manipulative way, but in the productive way, where we can have these conversations with people, but controlling how the conversation's going. But yeah, I think oftentimes when you feel like the conversation is run its course, it's totally acceptable to say, thanks for your time. I appreciate you. And you gave me a lot to think about. And then that's it. So yeah. Let's see here. I'm almost down to the bottom. So they get their morality from animals. That's relating to a comment up where somebody asked about, they see homosexual behavior, at least in the animal kingdom. I'll tell you what, if homosexuality was rampant in the animal kingdom, uh, that would disprove evolutionary biology. I think, I mean, how's the animal, species going to survive if they're doing that? And I'm not saying that in a pithy way, guys. I'm just it's just a fact, and we don't, like I said, we're not animals. We're not merely animals, right? We're human beings, right? And for this, it's the same reason why, when a shark eats another shark, it doesn't murder the shark, but humans murder humans, and we ought not eat them. um, it's likely discussed in many places, but we know where asks are expected to identify our gender in email signatures in the workplace. And so, yeah. So I'm glad this came up, actually. This is a good question. And I see one or two more. I'll try to get to them. I've got like 2 more minutes. Patricia, I think that this is where it's going. This is a very practical, not where it's going. This is where it's at. And this is it's so interesting because isn't just a courtesy. This is actually this is your business or your workplace making a political point, forcing, not just making a point, but it's forcing an ideology on us. It's forcing it on you. You don't. Greg Kokel, Greg, my boss, he did a mentor moment in our staff meeting yesterday. He brought up the fact, like, if you work for a Christian organization, or if you work for an organization and its leadership is Catholic, say, would it be appropriate for them on Ash Wednesday to ask you to put ashes on your forehead? Well, no, there'd be objections all over the place. So, and he was doing in relation to, hey, here's a gay pride pin. We want you to wear this pin. In that instance, no. I'm sorry. This is where we stand firm. I'm sorry. I can't support something that I disagree with ideologically. So I'm not going to do that. I hope that's okay. And then the pronoun thing, I have no problem. Like if you want to maintain your job and you want to stay there and you can be a good influence, you can be that light in the darkness, and your email requires you to put he, his, or whatnot. At this moment right now, I don't have a problem with it, but I would have an issue with being required to address people according to their preferred pronouns. That's probably where I draw the line. I call them whatever name they want. I think I've spoken about this on another video. I'll call them whatever name they want because names are fluid. Names are made up. They're subjective. Our gender is not. It's objective. It's part of who they are. A male is a he. A female is a she. So I'm going to go out of my way not to offend the person. I'm not going to try to be offensive, but I am going to hold firm to the truth of the way the world really is. And I'm going to do it in the best way that I can. I'm going to be winsome. But I'm not going to sacrifice truth. So here, in recognizing your pronouns, fine. We just saw Vice President Harris. She started I'm sure you guys have seen the video. She started her address by, "I'm Vice President Harris. I am a female. I go by she, her. I'm the female in the blue suit," is what she said. I'm not like irate about that, but it does point to something greater. So let me take one more. I'm already over time here for me. Let's see here. Is there a question? I see a question mark in here. That's why I'm going to it. Do you think we should just call it temperament instead of gender? Yeah. So seems like a temperament doesn't require sexual nature inherently. Did you get? I wonder in New Reformation Apologetics if you got that from Jordan Peterson. Because Jordan Peterson, I can't remember if he says temperament. I think he used the word temperament. I was trying to think of that earlier, that word. Yes. I mean, I think that's helpful. Jordan Peterson would say that the word gender in the gender term is completely meaningless now, which presses in on me for a different reason, right? It leans into me. I don't like that, but maybe that's just the reality of it. And temperament, yeah, maybe. So you have sex and then temperament instead of sex and gender, and that kind of alleviates some of the tension in the conversation. But it certainly does make the point. Yeah. So with that, guys, you know what? I am going to I'm going to close this session out. But before I do that, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Many of you are video after video after video watching, and I'm so grateful for your time. And I hope that this was helpful. I know thinking through these things like this are helpful for me. Trying to relate things back to the basics, get them, firmed up in like subjective versus objective truth is really helpful for me. So I hope it was for you. And so with that, I want to remind you guys, early bird is over this Friday for Southern California Reality Conference. I can't even believe that. It's going to be in September, but the early bird registration, if you want to take advantage of the cheaper price, you got to do it now. Go to realityapologetics.com. It's right there in the link. Thanks, Harmony. Harmony's amazing. Harmony is amazing. Anyways, go register. You do not want to miss this season, guys. And last year, we were under COVID restrictions, so attendance was limited. This time we can pack the place out, and it's going to be amazing. We have a new band coming in to lead worship for us throughout the conference. Drew, our MC, he's our illusionist. He is like doing amazing new tricks. And that's just the entertainment part of it. Talk about the like why you're there, the content part. Guys, we have the best of the best coming to talk. We got Jay Warner Wallace, of course. The guys at Stand to Reason are coming in. We're hitting topics up. Megan Allman's back with us. We're going to hit up all of the stuff having to do with the deconversion, deconstruction stuff that's happening in Christian circles. And you want to make sure that you register for this conference. If you can't get to Southern California, that's cool. We got Seattle. Then we've got and that's October, I think. And then November, we go up to Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then we go down to Dallas, Texas after the new year. And then we go out to the east. We're going to Augusta, Georgia again. The beautiful church. I can't wait to get there. All of these places are amazing. And then we go up to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania again, outside of Philly. And all of these conferences are going to be incredible. Many of them are going to sell out. You want to make sure that you get on board, get your tickets. Registration closes for new. The early bird registration closes on Friday, and then the ticket price is going to go up. So get that. New content just came out for STR University. If you're not a part of STR University, make sure you get signed up for that. Go to the website, str.org/training, and you can sign up there. It's free. You get the courses. It's training.str.org. Make sure you get there, or you can just go to str.org, click on the training thing or STRU thing, and it'll log you in. You sign up. And it's all free content. I just released my 6-part series on biblical justice. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. I spent a lot of time on it. I think it's quality. I'm super happy with it. I think that there's another course on Jehovah's Witnesses, or who is Jesus stuff that came out that mainly addresses Jehovah's Witness claims. So get equipped that way. And of course, if you want more resources on gender stuff, if you want anything having to do with the LGBTQ stuff, homosexuality, all this stuff, we hit it up at str.org. We've got a blog goes up, a new blog almost every day, if not every day. Check out our social media stuff. If you're not doing the Facebook is like the one that I use barely, but Instagram, TikTok now with Red Pen Logic and all that. You want to get involved in all of our social media stuff as well. And with that, guys, it's been a great time. I really appreciate your attention. Thank you for hanging in there, addressing these hard topics with me. Lastly, I want to make sure that you guys know we are out on the road. I've been so busy speaking all over the place, and I would love to come to where you're at as well. So if you want to get some of these topics addressed in your local church or a conference or something like that, give us a call or contact us through the website. And it's Greg, of course, Alan Schleman, Tim Barnett, myself, Jon Noyes, and Robbie Lashua is our newest speaker. We're all fully open, and we're going. And I'd love to get you guys on the calendar for the fall and in the winter. So go to the website and do that. We'd love to spend time in person with you. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will be back in 2 weeks with another To the Point. I'm Jon Noyes for Stand to Reason, and I'll see you then.